The wind swept across the plains, causing the dark clouds above to churn, casting a heavy shadow over the land. Beneath these ominous clouds, two figures stood locked in a standoff, their eyes sharp as blades. No one has ever dared to snatch someone from the grasp of Blood Python City without paying the price. Chowing raised his blood-red serpent spear slowly, pointing it at Lin Dong. In his triangular pupils, a ruthless glint began to gather and, in the next instant, erupted like a volcano. You will be no exception. As Chowing spat out these words in a cold tone, a surging wave of primordial energy burst forth. The gale intensified in the sky as his figure, swift as a specter, appeared right in front of Lin Dong. With the serpent spear in hand, he drew intricate arcs infused with immense force, striking at Lin Dong's vital points at lightning speed. Lin Dong stood as steady as a rock, his dark eyes calmly watching the fierce spear shadows descending upon him. In a sudden movement, his hand clenched tightly, and the Thunder Emperor's scepter in his grip emitted a low rumble. Sparks of lightning flickered and countless staff shadows whistled forth, boldly clashing against Chao Ying's aggressive assault. Clang, clang. The crisp clangor of metal echoed in the sky, accompanied by sparks scattering rapidly. With each clash of staff and spear shadows, a violent storm would form and explode, causing many onlookers to flinch. The two were locked in an intense dance, exchanging blows in a blur of light and shadow, only to recoil briefly before launching forward as taut strings once more, causing the air behind them to rupture with their explosive force. That Lin Dong can actually face Chowing head-on? How is that possible? Isn't he only at the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage? This frontal confrontation in the sky stirred a hubbub across the plains, and gradually, a sense of gravity settled in the eyes of many. They began to realize that this young man had some real capabilities to defy Blood Python City so brazenly. Ding! The rampant primordial energy spread, and the myriad shadows of scepters and spears suddenly shrank, as the Thunder Staff and Serpent Spear burst forth with radiant light. The tip of the Thunder Staff slammed heavily against the spear's point. Boom! A formidable shockwave emanated like ripples, causing the very space around them to distort under the impact. As the light swirled around, Chao Ying's cold gaze remained locked on the youthful face just inches away. A slight tremor stirred within him, unable to comprehend how Lin Dong, with his strength at the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage, could directly contend with someone like him, close to reaching the perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. The disparity in their primordial energy should have been insurmountable. It seems this kid is far from simple. As this thought flickered through Chao Ying's mind, his expression turned ominously cold. With a quick shift of his palm's imprint, the menacing snake head atop the blood-red spear seemed to come to life, unleashing a scarlet light that clung to the Thunder Emperor's scepter and darted toward Lin Dong. A peculiar fragrance, filled with lethal venom, emanated from that blood light. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed upon sensing the swift approach of the venomous light. Primordial energy surged out only to be penetrated easily by the toxic force, which seemed to carry an intense corrosive property that not even primordial energy could easily deter. Don't you know that my true form is the Blood Ghost Python? My venom is such that even a master at the great completion of the Death Mystique stage wouldn't survive contact. Chowing sneered as he watched Lin Dong struggle against the bloodlight. It's true that ordinary primordial energy finds it hard to block. However, as his sneer faded, Lin Dong laughed and then unleashed a brilliant burst of lightning from the Thunder Emperor's scepter. This lightning harbored immensely pure and violent thunder power, which converged and fiercely counterattacked the rampaging venomous light. Sizzle! A sharp sound pierced the air upon collision, but this time, the potent venomous power failed to replicate its earlier effect. Instead, under the assault of the thunderous energy, it began to sputter before being completely dispersed with a final pop. How is this possible? Chao Ying's expression changed dramatically. This venom was one of his deadly weapons, capable of overpowering even powerful foes at the great completion of the Death Mystique stage. Even if someone could fend it off, it typically required significant effort. How could Lin Dong deflect it with such ease? Himph, now taste this. Lin Dong paid no mind to Chao Ying's shock. His eyes cold as flash, and the Thunder Emperor's scepter in his hand whirled with streams of lightning striking fiercely at Chao Ying's heart. Clang! Chao Ying hastily retracted his serpent spear to block the incoming attack, but the scepter carried such overpowering force that arcs of electricity surged into his arm. As the electric arcs coursed through Chao Ying's arm, a wave of agony swept over him, causing his facial expression to change dramatically. Primordial energy surged uncontrollably within him, turning his entire arm a blood-red shade as he desperately purged the invasive lightning. Chao Ying's arm trembled slightly, his face twisted in a sudden snarl. He hadn't anticipated that in this fierce exchange, it would be his arm to suffer the first injury. Let's see if I don't swallow you whole today. With a fierce shout, he swung his palm, sending droplets of blood into the air, where they formed a hovering blood trail. He then traced it with his fingertip, transforming the trail into a scarlet rune. Blood venom spirit of 1,000 serpents. An overwhelming blood-red light surged forth, morphing into a swarm of blood serpents that erupted from within Chao Ying, wrapping around the blood-colored rune, rapidly expanding. In a flash, a colossal blood serpent, nearly 1,000 feet long, took shape in the sky. The massive serpent's body was covered in strange runes, its maw gaping as blood-colored saliva dripped down, causing wisps of white smoke to rise as it burned through the air, a potent toxin radiating outwards. The onlookers on the plains below, all seasoned warriors, were stricken with terror as they quickly held their breaths, fully aware of the blood python's deadly prowess. I'm done wasting time with you. Devour him. Chao Ying sneered and extended his hand, and the giant blood python surged forward with shocking speed. All the crowd could catch was a flash of red in the sky before, in horrified silence, the venomous spirit had already appeared above Lin Dong, swallowing him whole in one mighty gulp. Gasps erupted everywhere as countless people shook their heads in disbelief. This battle had ended so swiftly. That venomous spirit was a prized creation of Chao Ying's, and anyone swallowed by it would be dissolved in moments, even a master at the great completion of the death mystique stage. Over the years, no one had ever emerged alive once taken in. On a ridge above, 2 Ninetails clan maidens turned pale, while Xianqing clenched her small fists, her large eyes fixed on the blood python's spirit with unyielding focus. Foolish creature. In the sky, Chao Ying chuckled darkly, casting a cold glance toward the trio on the ridge. But just as he was about to act, a laugh echoed from within the blood python's spirit. Is that all you've got? Trying to poison me? Aren't you afraid you'll choke? At the sound, Chao Ying's pupils shrank. He was about to manipulate the venomous spirit further, but suddenly, the blood python's spirit let out an agonized screech. Across its crimson form, countless fine black threads began to spread. Let's see who swallows whom. A cold laugh echoed again, and Chao Ying's eyes widened as he watched the enormous venomous spirit rapidly shrink at a frightening pace, reducing to a few dozen feet in mere moments. Before anyone could react, it exploded into a blood mist under a sea of stunned gazes. As the blood mist dispersed, a young man with a faint smile emerged in the midst of the scattered blood cloud, reappearing before the shocked assembly. Impossible! The stunned murmurs arose from the crowd, mouths agape in disbelief. The venomous spirit, feared throughout the beast combat domain, had been broken in such an unfathomable way. Chao Ying coughed up blood, his face twisted in disbelief, his gaze filled with shock. Is that all you can do, playing with devouring? Lin Dong looked at Chao Ying with a slight smile, one eye seeming to swirl with a dark vortex, traces of blood-red energy floating within before gradually dissipating entirely. This power, of course, originated from the devouring ancestral talisman. Now that Lin Dong's strength had risen to the death mystique stage, the ancestral talisman's power was beginning to fully reveal itself. With his current abilities, he could unleash its force without being detected. Who are you? Chao Ying's face darkened, though deep within his gaze, a flash of ferocity appeared. Lin Dong chuckled, and a thin stream of dark energy faded from his fingertips. The one who's here to take your life. As Lin Dong's words fell, Chowing noticed, with a shock that grew into terror, that Lin Dong's other eye was gathering a brilliant lightning energy, stirring an intense dread within him. Two ancestral talismans, the devouring for defense and the thunder for offense. Having advanced to the death mystique stage, the power of the two talismans was finally emerging under Lin Dong's control. With a flicker of lightning collecting at an astounding speed in Lin Dong's eye, thunder seemed to roll through the clouds above him. Chowing watched in shock, an unshakable sense of unease rising within. Gritting his teeth, he steeled himself. No matter what, this brat must die today. A vicious glint flickered in Chao Ying's eyes as a low growl escaped his throat. Immediately, a flood of blood-red light erupted from his body, engulfing the sky. At the same time, his body began to expand rapidly. Crack, crack. Amidst the blood-colored haze, shadowy figures surged and a piercing hiss, thick with a nauseating stench, filled the air. The onlookers watched as Chao Ying's body morphed into a massive, 1,000-foot-long crimson python. Dark patches dotted its enormous body, and from its back stretched gigantic wings, resembling a flying dragon from a distance. Blood-red scales covered the massive python, and its fierce scarlet eyes locked onto Lin Dong with murderous intent. A demonic beast's true form. Huh? Lin Dong's gaze sharpened slightly. He knew full well that a demonic beast's greatest strength lay in their physical bodies. Once they revealed this form, they would unleash their full power, often a sign they were ready to fight to the death. Clearly, Chowing had grown weary of the prolonged battle and intended to end it here and now. However, this wouldn't be an easy feat. Thunder began to gather in Lin Dong's eyes, and above him, storm clouds furiously converged. The sky darkened as serpentine streaks of lightning danced across the clouds. This strange phenomenon didn't go unnoticed by the powerful figures present. Many eyes filled with astonishment as they sensed the wild and chaotic energy within the gathering storm. Dragon Ghost Art. A sharp shout burst from the mouth of the crimson python that Chowing had become. Instantly, a surge of blood-red light surged, and the massive python writhed within the glowing aura. Sharp, blood-red spikes protruded from its body, and atop its head, blood-red dragon horns began to take shape. In that moment, its aura shot skyward, and a pressure akin to that of the dragon clan began to spread. Boom! The sky exploded with blood-red light as a towering column of energy shot forth. Within the blood-red glow, a colossal blood dragon emerged, brimming with murderous intent. As its massive body surged forward, even the very space around it seemed to warp and twist. There was no intricate technique in this attack, just sheer, terrifying power. The impact alone seemed capable of reducing a mountain to rubble. Everyone could feel the terrifying ferocity packed into that collision. High above, Lin Dong gazed down at the approaching crimson light, like a blood-red meteor. His expression grew increasingly serious. Slowly, he extended his hand, pointing towards the thick clouds overhead. Taking a deep breath, his eyes flared with lightning. Boom! As Lin Dong's hand stretched forth, the storm clouds above began to churn violently. Countless streaks of lightning gathered at the center of the storm, ripping through the clouds. Then, a massive, 1,000-foot-long hand of thunder appeared above the battlefield, drawing countless astonished gazes. Thunder Emperor's falling star hand. Standing in midair, Lin Dong's voice rang out coldly, brimming with an undeniable authority, as if he were the Emperor of Thunder itself. Boom! At the sound of his voice, the giant thunder hand plummeted from the sky. Within the massive hand, thunder dragons coiled, and deep within the lightning, a massive thunder talisman faintly flickered. A vast, violent power radiated from it. Crash! As the colossal hand descended, the ground below shattered, leaving behind a 1,000-foot-deep imprint. The terrifying power left many watching in horror, and even the warriors of Blood Python City looked on with fear in their eyes. Swoosh! The thunderous light and blood-red glow tore through the sky from different angles, colliding with a thunderous crash under countless stunned gazes. It was like two meteors crashing together, bringing with them total annihilation. Boom! The deafening sound of impact echoed for miles, and brilliant light filled the sky. The radiance was so intense it outshone even the distant sun. Everyone shielded their eyes, peering through their fingers at the source of the blinding light. There, the two massive figures were locked in a fierce struggle, each trying to overpower the other. "I'll kill you." A torrent of blood-red light erupted from the crimson python, now covered in bone spikes, as Chao Ying's murderous roar shook the heavens. "Thunderstrike." Lin Dong extended his hand towards the struggling crimson python. His eyes were cold, and his voice, icy as ever, cut through the chaos as he clenched his fist. As Lin Dong's final words left his mouth, the enormous hand of thunder erupted in a blinding flash, releasing countless bolts of lightning that shot furiously toward the massive crimson python. "Humph!" Chao Ying snorted coldly, a blood-red glow spreading out across the sky, colliding head-on with the oncoming lightning. "Courting death, are we?" Lin Dong merely smiled at this sight, knowing these bolts were no ordinary manifestations of primordial energy. They carried the true power of the Thunder ancestral talisman within them. As the first bolt exploded, shock rippled through Chao Ying's enormous serpent eyes. In the tremors emanating from the lightning, he sensed a potent and deadly aura. But with no time to retreat, he could only watch as the relentless bolts of lightning came crashing down. Boom, boom, boom. One explosion after another erupted upon the crimson python's body. Screeches echoed as the blood-colored energy cloaking Chao Ying began to dissipate wildly in the thunderous blasts. His once impenetrable blood-red scales showed signs of fracturing, while dark red blood burst forth in torrents, like a fountain. Everyone looked up, their pupils shrinking as they saw the once ferocious crimson python being blasted backward, blood splattering across the sky like a deadly rain, even sizzling as it hit the ground, revealing its toxic nature. Crash! The massive crimson python, now aglow with a red hue, plummeted down and smashed heavily into the ground, creating a giant crater that spanned several thousand feet. Blood streamed down, staining the land a deep scarlet. A sea of stunned gazes fell upon the vast crater on the plain, where the battered remains of the crimson python lay. Clearly, in that sky-shaking clash, Chao Ying had lost. Silence swept over the plain. Experts from all factions looked on with a mixture of expressions before lifting their heads to peer at the young figure in the sky. This human, who could wield such overwhelming power, was indeed formidable enough to challenge Blood Python City. The Blood Python City elites turned pale, especially Chao Meng, who was filled with disbelief. He simply couldn't fathom that Chao Ying had been defeated by a human boy at the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage. He won. On a nearby ridge, Xian Qing finally loosened her clenched fists, a relieved smile breaking across her face. Behind her, two girls from the Ninetails clan hugged each other, cheering with a joy that spoke of narrowly escaping disaster. Lin Dong gazed down at the now quiet plain, the lightning in his eyes gradually fading. In a flash, he appeared in the crater, his Thunder Emperor's scepter extended toward Chao Ying, who had reverted to human form in the dimming blood-red glow. Chao Ying was drenched in blood, his body covered in wounds, his aura barely holding. Looking up at Lin Dong, who held the scepter pointed at his forehead with an expressionless gaze, a trace of fear finally surfaced in Chao Ying's previously fierce eyes. From this young man's icy stare, Chao Ying could sense an unhidden killing intent, the kind that only someone who had survived bloody battles could possess. He had no doubt that if he dared to move, this youth would smash his scepter down, shattering his skull. "Lord of the city, you've lost," Lin Dong said quietly, a smile creeping onto his face as he watched Chao Ying, who dared not move an inch under the scepter's point. Chao Ying's face twisted slightly, and he gritted his teeth. "Even if you've defeated me, Blood Python City still has many soldiers here. How could you possibly stand against us all?" "Killing this many people would indeed be troublesome," Lin Dong replied with a calm smile, casting an indifferent glance at the Blood Python City forces nearby, who were on high alert. However, trust me, if I wanted to leave, none of you could stop me. And before I leave, I could probably eliminate half of Blood Python City's top fighters. A twitch appeared at the corner of Chao Ying's mouth. Had he not experienced Lin Dong's power firsthand, he might have dismissed such a claim, but now he couldn't. He understood that this smiling young man truly had the strength to do just that. Wounded as he was, Chao Ying knew he could no longer stop Lin Dong himself. Is it really worth suffering such losses just to capture 2 members of the Ninetails clan? Lin Dong suggested, his voice carrying across the plain. You. Chao Ying gritted his teeth, clearly unwilling. 2 choices. Each of us takes a step back, or I'll kill you. Then take out half of Blood Python City's warriors before leaving with my people. Lin Dong's smile held a sinister edge in Chao Ying's eyes, sending a chill through him. He knew the person in front of him might very well do exactly that. Chao Ying's face shifted repeatedly, but under Lin Dong's increasingly cold gaze, he finally gritted his teeth and nodded. Fine. Blood Python City will take the loss this time. Lin Dong smiled, slowly retracting the Thunder Emperor's scepter in his hand. He looked across the plain at the countless strong warriors watching intently. He knew he had achieved his goal. On the battered plain, countless stunned and tense eyes followed Lin Dong as he lifted the scepter from Chao Ying's forehead, swept a calm gaze around, and then turned to leave. Moments later, a wave of astonished murmurs broke out. The outcome of the battle was now obvious, and it had taken almost everyone by surprise. Few had believed that Lin Dong stood a chance against Chao Ying. After all, he was just an unknown young man who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, while Chao Ying had long been a renowned figure in the beast combat domain. Reaching the level of a half-step perfect completion of the death mystique stage, Chao Ying could look down upon most warriors. Yet the final result left the crowd deeply shaken. Not only had Lin Dong defeated Chao Ying, but he had also issued a bold threat before so many of Blood Python City's warriors, and it worked. That guy, his name's Lin Dong? Quite a formidable character. Many people were taken aback. It seemed certain that after today, his name would spread quickly. Still, some shook their heads in doubt. The beast combat domain was chaotic at the best of times. With such audacious behavior, Lin Dong would undoubtedly attract trouble. If it wasn't Chao Ying next time, it would be someone even more dangerous. Amid the uproar, Chao Mang, along with several Blood Python City warriors, rushed over to the severely injured Chao Ying. With dark expressions, they glared at Lin Dong's retreating figure, who didn't even glance back at them. Chao Mang gritted his teeth and muttered, "Brother, are we really just going to let that punk go? We have the numbers. No matter his tricks, we could finish him off." Chao Ying's gaze was equally grim, but he finally shook his head, reluctantly saying, "That kid's strange. Even if we overpowered him with numbers today, Blood Python City would suffer heavy casualties. And if any of those other forces eyeing us seized the opportunity, Blood Python City might not survive. But letting this get out will ruin our reputation." Chao Mang protested. "Which is more important, our reputation or our survival?" Chao Ying retorted coldly. His eyes hardened. "We'll remember this debt. When the time is right, we'll settle it." At this, Chao Mang could only nod, understanding that with Chao Ying gravely injured, no one left in Blood Python City could truly stand against Lin Dong in direct combat. If a battle erupted now, the losses would indeed be devastating. For now, they had no choice but to swallow their anger and endure. "Let's go." Back on the hillside, Lin Dong returned to find 3 admiring, nearly fanatical, gazes fixed on him. He could only shake his head with a hint of resignation and waved his hand. Xianqing and the 2 other girls nodded obediently. Seeing this, Lin Dong said no more. He had achieved his purpose today, and there was no reason to linger. With a flash of movement, he transformed into a streak of light and sped off in another direction, with Xianqing and her 2 companions close behind. Soon, the 4 of them vanished from sight, watched by countless pairs of eyes. As Lin Dong and his group departed, the atmosphere in the sky gradually relaxed. Many looked on with a mix of sympathy and scorn at the battered Blood Python City warriors retreating in defeat. After the confrontation with Blood Python City, Lin Dong's journey was notably uneventful. Yet, as they traveled, he sensed the ripple effects from the recent events. His audacious actions seemed to leave an impression on the powerful figures of the beast combat domain. Given this result, Lin Dong couldn't help feeling a bit resigned. He wanted his name to resonate throughout the beast combat domain, and these events were inevitable. He didn't regret his actions. After all, if it meant finding little Yin, he was willing to stir up as much trouble as needed. His only hope now was that little Yin would actually hear of these events. Otherwise, all this effort would be wasted. With this hope in his heart, Lin Dong and his 3 companions gradually neared the territory of the Ninetails clan. Master Lin Dong, just half an hour more, and we should reach Ninetails village, EngSubs, wiping the sweat from her smooth forehead, called out sweetly to Lin Dong up ahead. Understood. Lin Dong nodded, glancing around. The crimson wasteland they had left 2 days ago now lay behind them, replaced by this verdant area, rich with life in stark contrast to the barren desert. We're now at the border between Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge. It's much more orderly here compared to the Red Wasteland. Since both Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge lay claim to all the land here, EngSubs explained, trying to offer Lin Dong as much information as possible about the beast combat domain. How does Blood Python City compare to these 2 powers? Lin Dong asked. Blood Python City can't even come close. For starters, the leaders of both Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge are among the 8 demon commanders of the beast combat domain. Their ranks are filled with formidable warriors, each boasting 9 elite generals under their command. Any one of these generals alone would rival the Lord of Blood Python City, EngSubs replied, her expression solemn. Lin Dong's gaze sharpened slightly at her words. Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge were clearly formidable indeed. Just their 9 generals alone reached Chao Ying's level, making it no wonder these 2 stood as the most powerful forces within the beast combat domain. It's said that the demon commanders of Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge both have the potential to break through to the revolution stage. If they succeed, their status would not only reach the peak within the beast combat domain, but could make them true powers across the entire demonic beast region. Lin Dong nodded thoughtfully. Although only a single step separated perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage from the Revolution stage, that one step could easily crush countless prodigies. Only by taking that step could one be counted among the supreme powerhouses of the world, with the ability to pursue the path of reincarnation. These 2 top powers were indeed impressively strong. Half an hour passed swiftly as he conversed with EngSubs, and Lin Dong soon noticed the scenery up ahead open into a wide, expansive view. In the distance, there stood a mountain suspended in midair, surrounded by deep ravines. Chains extended from the mountain's edges, forming bridges that connected it to the outside world. On this mountain was a massive array barrier, enveloping it entirely. Inside the barrier, Lin Dong could make out various buildings, resembling a small village nestled within. This array is no small feat, Lin Dong remarked, his eyes reflecting a hint of surprise as he sensed a potent energy radiating from the barrier. Master Lin Dong, that's our Ninetails clan's protective array. It's one of the few remaining from ancient times. Without it, our clan's situation would have been far worse, EngSubs explained. Lin Dong nodded. Master Lin Dong, we'll sound the fox whistle, so the village knows we're back. Everyone will be thrilled to see you. The 2 young women from the Ninetails clan exclaimed joyfully. Taking out uniquely shaped whistles, they placed them to their lips and blew, sending a haunting melody echoing through the mountains. As Lin Dong watched the mountain peak, he noticed movement within the village in response to the whistle. Soon, numerous figures appeared within the barrier, and the entire mountainside buzzed with life. This was a dark, towering mountain. At its peak stood a grand stone hall, surrounded by a rigorous defense, with guards stationed every few steps. Inside the hall sat a figure at the head seat, half of his body hidden in shadow. Only his towering frame, as sturdy as a mountain, was visible, emitting an oppressive aura that filled the entire hall. This pressure caused the man standing below to continually break out in a cold sweat. General Yin, within 1,000 miles of the Northwest Mountain, all forces have been swept clean. Your renown from this victory is unmatched, certainly beyond that of the other generals. The figure in the shadows remained unmoved by the praise, his solid frame as still as a statue. "Speak." A voice like muffled thunder reverberated through the grand hall. "My lord has long held an interest in the humans within the beast combat domain. Recently, it's said that a human appeared on the Crimson Wilderness Plains, and rumor has it that he defeated the Lord of Blood Python City." The shadowed figure lowered his head slightly, his dark red eyes gleaming with an ominous ferocity as he stared at the man before him. "What is his name?" The man below hesitated, furrowing his brows as he thought. "I think he's called Lin Dong." Boom. No sooner had he spoken than his face turned ashen. A horrifyingly intense killing intent surged within the hall. Suddenly, a towering figure appeared before him, emerging from the shadows like a looming iron fortress. A large, scarred hand reached out and grabbed his collar, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. He stared in terror at the towering man, known for his unyielding indifference, who now seemed to radiate wrath. The sheer intensity of his reaction was baffling. "Where is he?" The man's thunderous voice exploded in his ears, leaving him dizzy, but he dared not delay. He's with the Ninetails clan. If I'm not mistaken, he should be heading to the Ninetails village. And also, my lord, since that human has been acting quite arrogantly, many are after him. Even Mountain General himself plans to confront him." Mountain General? In the Iron Giant's crimson eyes, a storm of murderous rage seemed to gather. In an instant, he threw the man aside, his voice resounding through the entire mountain like rolling thunder. "All troops, prepare to move out. Send word to that bastard Ming Shan. If he dares lay a hand on that man, I'll slaughter his entire clan." The man hurriedly nodded, visibly shaken, and dashed out of the hall. As the orders spread, a flurry of activity swept through the mountain as warriors hastened to pack up, readying to depart. When the hall finally emptied, the Iron Giant strode slowly outside. In the sunlight, his scarred face, resembling that of a fierce, sky-devouring tiger, came into view. This fearsome warrior, renowned throughout the beast combat domain for his blood-soaked reputation, looked northward with a gaze that softened. His blood-stained, emotionless tiger eyes held a newfound warmth, and as he stared, a rare, rough smile surfaced on his hardened face. "Big brother, I've finally waited long enough for you." The lush mountainside village, dotted with splashes of green and red and alive with birdsong, exuded a tranquil, almost paradise-like charm. Under the guidance of 3 women, Lin Dong strolled leisurely through the village. Curious, lively figures flitted around, large eyes filled with fascination as they stole glances at him. Occasionally, laughter like that of songbirds rippled through the air. Surrounded by such attention, Lin Dong could only shake his head with a wry smile. The 3 women beside him chuckled, then shooed the onlookers away with playful reprimands. "Lord Lin Dong, please don't mind them. Our Ninetails clan is rather secluded. We rarely receive visitors, especially humans," Xianqing explained. Lin Dong waved a hand, signaling that he didn't mind. He was used to such scrutiny by now. "Just ahead is our main village. The elders are awaiting your arrival," Xianqing said with a smile. They had already informed the village of Lin Dong's identity before entering. "All right." Nodding, Lin Dong quickened his pace. Before long, a spacious village came into view, and gathered before it were several figures. Standing at the forefront was a dignified woman, whose face lit up the moment she saw Xianqing. "Mother." Seeing the woman, Xianqing's eyes misted over, and she dashed forward, throwing herself into her mother's embrace. After being away, this little girl had evidently missed home dearly. The woman hugged her tightly, murmuring in affection, as other women gathered around, their faces brimming with warmth. Watching this scene, Lin Dong pursed his lips, a wave of nostalgia stirring within him. He thought of his own family, whom he hadn't seen since he left the Great Yin Empire years ago. "Heh, what's this? So Xianqing brings home a little man this time?" As Lin Dong was caught in a moment of wistfulness, a teasing voice suddenly rang out. He looked up to see a group of women, each with a hint of charm, all watching him with playful smiles. Exine face turned bright red as she quickly said, "Stop with the nonsense. This is Lord Lindong. He's here in the demon region on important business, and our palace master assigned me to guide him. We actually ran into Sister Lu and the others on the way here. They'd been captured by Blood Python City, and it was Lord Lindong who rescued them. So keep your gossip in check. He's a distinguished guest, and we must treat him with respect." The woman gave a stern look to the giggling girls, then turned to Lindong and, with a graceful smile, said, "Young Lindong, on behalf of the entire Ninetails clan, allow me to thank you for helping Xiao Lu and the others." Lindong waved it off and replied, "You're too kind, village chief. Exine was guiding me, so lending a hand was only natural." "Village chief sounds too formal," she said gently. "If you're not put off by our Ninetails clan, please just call me Aunt Exine." Despite her age, the woman's beauty was striking, and her face bore no trace of time. "Then, I'll gladly oblige." Lindong smiled, thinking that calling this gentlewoman village chief would indeed feel a bit awkward. "I understand the reason for your visit to the beast combat domain," Aunt Exine said with a smile. "Let's head inside and talk." With a nod from Lindong, she turned to lead the way. In the guest hall, Aunt Exine watched Exine respectfully place a cup of tea by Lindong's side before stepping back. She then asked softly, "Young Lindong, would you mind sharing some details about the person you're looking for?" "His name is Lin Yin. He's a brother to me, though I'm not sure if he's using that name here in the beast combat domain. Lin Yin is of the Tiger Clan, specifically the Heavenly Demon Tiger Clan." "Lin Yin," Aunt Exine furrowed her brow and then shook her head. "To my knowledge, there hasn't been anyone by that name in the beast combat domain over the past year. The Tiger Clan is one of the great clans in the demonic beast realm, and the Heavenly Demon Tiger Clan is not only one of the Tiger Clan's 3 strongest branches, but also one of the 8 royal clans in the demonic beast realm. There are many powerful members of the Tiger Clan here in the beast combat domain, including some from the Heavenly Demon Tiger Clan, but they are all well-known figures, which doesn't quite match the information you've given." Lindong sighed with a hint of disappointment. Finding little Yin was indeed not going to be easy. "But don't worry," Aunt Exine added. "I'll have people gather information on any prominent figures who have risen in the beast combat domain over the past year. With your abilities, I'm sure your brother isn't an ordinary person. If he's here, he should be making a name for himself, which will make the search easier." Lindong nodded. "Then I'll leave it in your capable hands, Aunt Exine. For the next few days, please stay with us here at Ninetails Village. As soon as I have any news, I'll inform you." Aunt Exine smiled, then called a young girl over to guide Lindong to his quarters. After Lindong left, Exine sat down beside Aunt Exine and asked, "Mother, do you really have no information about the person Lord Lindong is looking for? The beast combat domain is vast, and our Ninetails clan is tucked away in a small corner, barely able to protect ourselves. Naturally, our information channels aren't very extensive. But don't worry, I'll do everything I can to have people investigate." Aunt Exine smiled and affectionately patted Exine face. "You've had it tough out there, haven't you?" "No, everyone at the Flame Deity Palace takes good care of me." Exine shook her head with a smile. "So, this young Lindong, is he also from the Flame Deity Palace?" Aunt Exine asked, looking in the direction Lindong had left. "No, but Lord Lindong is incredibly powerful. Not only does the palace master hold him in high regard, but even Elder Qingji admires him. I heard from Sister Exine Lien that Elder Qingji has reached the reincarnation stage," Exine said, her eyes glimmering with admiration. "Reincarnation stage?" At these words, Aunt Exine shuddered slightly, and the women nearby gasped in astonishment, their faces filled with awe. A powerhouse of that level was beyond anything the Ninetails clan could have ever dreamed of challenging, even in its prime. The Flame Deity Palace was attacked recently. They say the assailants included 1 reincarnation stage powerhouse and 3 at the revolution stage. Exine small face lit up with excitement, oblivious to the shock on the faces around her. Such a terrifying force could obliterate any faction in the beast combat domain with ease. Lord Lindong joined forces with Sister Xian Lian and others from the Flame Deity Palace to defeat one of the Revolution stage fighters, and even managed to seal him away. Aunt Xian was visibly moved. She had sensed Lindong's strength earlier, minor completion of the Death Mystique stage, similar to her own. It seems that this young brother Lindong is indeed extraordinary, Aunt Xian remarked. Now, she no longer harbored any doubt about the praise Morua and Elder Qingji had lavished upon him, as mentioned by Xian Qing. Xian Qing nodded eagerly, her fair face flushed with a charming hint of red. Xian Qing, could it be that you've taken a liking to this brother Lindong? He does seem like a good match, teased a woman standing nearby, a playful grin on her face. Aunt Hong, what are you talking about? I'm just a little girl. How could I be worthy of Lord Lindong? Even Sister Xian Lian seems fond of him. Xian Qing's face turned bright red as she protested, embarrassed and flustered. All right, enough teasing her. Xian Qing, why don't you go and rest for now? And since you're back, try not to wander outside. If Qing Gang from 100 Beasts Ridge finds out, there could be trouble, Aunt Xian said, giving her a gentle smile amidst the chuckles around. At the mention of that name, the blush on Xian Qing's face faded noticeably, and she bit her lip gently before nodding in silent agreement. Seeing her reaction, Aunt Xian could only sigh with a wry smile. Over the next few days, Lindong remained in the Ninetails village. Although the village lay within the chaotic beast combat domain, it had a rare sense of peace that stood in stark contrast to the turmoil outside. While he waited, occasional news would come his way, though unfortunately, none of it was the information he sought. It appeared that, in terms of intelligence gathering, the Ninetails clan was somewhat limited. However, Lindong held no resentment over it, especially when he saw how Xian Qing, with her anxious and pitiable expression, would gaze up at him each time he shook his head. Instead, he found himself smiling and patting her head to reassure her, which seemed to ease her worry, even if only slightly. Since he just arrived in this beast combat domain, he thought he might as well treat it as a period of rest for now before figuring out his next steps. Thus, in this gradually relaxed frame of mind, 3 more days passed quietly. One day, Lindong sat perched atop a towering tree in the village, reclining against a thick tree trunk, his eyes half closed as he let the warm sunlight filter through the leaves, casting dappled patches of light across his body. Lost in his comfort, Lindong suddenly opened his eyes, mildly curious at the stir that had unexpectedly erupted in Ninetails village. He noticed a group of young women gathering in his direction, moving toward the secluded corner of the village where he was resting. Lord Lindong, can we stay here with you? We promise we won't be a bother, Xian Qing said as she settled onto the tree branch beside him, her hands clasped in a playful, pleading gesture. Yes, we definitely won't bother you. And if you get cold, Xian Qing will be happy to warm your bed for you, chimed in a few other young women nearby, their words playful yet bold. What's going on? Lindong asked with a smile, having grown somewhat familiar with the young women of the Ninetails clan over the past few days. Hearing his question, Xian Qing sighed softly before giving a faint, resigned smile.